I'm about to show you plants so gorgeous, you'll think they're fake. Yet they've been thriving in a basement with 0 windows for over 2 years. No grow lights, no sun lamps, just complete darkness during the day. Your friends won't believe these beauties are real, and they definitely won't believe where you're growing them. But here's the twist that changes everything about indoor gardening. Most people think plants need blazing sunshine to survive. Well, your dimly lit apartment is about to prove that wrong. Some of the most gorgeous houseplants actually prefer life in the shadows, and there's a fascinating reason why. Deep in tropical rainforests, millions of plants spend their entire lives competing for scraps of sunlight that filter through thick canopies above. These forest floor dwellers evolved over thousands of years to thrive on just 2 to 5% of available sunlight. That's less light than what streams through your north-facing window on a cloudy Tuesday. The intense competition for light created botanical survivors that could photosynthesize efficiently with minimal energy input. But here's where it gets interesting. These same evolutionary adaptations make certain plants perfect roommates for your dark living room or windowless bathroom. They're not just surviving indoors, they're actually comfortable there. The low-light conditions that would kill a sun-loving cactus feel like home to a snake plant or pothos vine. NASA discovered something remarkable during their clean air study in the late 1980s. They tested 20 common houseplants to see which ones could purify spacecraft air most effectively. The surprising winners? Almost all of them were low-light species. Plants like snake plants, peace lilies, and spider plants didn't just clean the air, they did it while thriving under nothing but fluorescent office lighting. Makes sense when you think about it. These plants had already mastered the art of doing more with less. The secret lies in how these plants physically adapt to darkness. Their leaves typically grow larger and thinner to capture every available photon. Think of them as solar panels that have been redesigned for maximum efficiency rather than maximum power output. The chlorophyll in their leaves becomes more concentrated, turning them deeper shades of green. Some varieties even develop variegated patterns or purple undersides to reflect and redirect whatever light hits them. Then, there's the metabolic magic happening inside. Low-light plants operate like hybrid cars. They've evolved incredibly efficient energy systems. They photosynthesize slower but more consistently. While sun-loving plants might gorge themselves on morning light and then struggle through afternoon shadows, shade plants maintain steady energy production throughout the day. They're basically the marathon runners of the plant world, built for endurance rather than speed. Root systems tell another fascinating story. Plants in low-light conditions often develop more extensive root networks to compensate for reduced energy production above ground. These roots become highly efficient at absorbing nutrients and water, which explains why overwatering kills low-light plants faster than underwatering. Their roots are designed for precision, not excess. What really blows people's minds is learning that some houseplants can survive entirely on artificial light. LED grow lights, fluorescent bulbs, even those warm desk lamps can provide enough energy for certain species to not just survive, but actually flower indoors. Offices filled with nothing but fluorescent lighting have become accidental greenhouses for plants like ZZ plants and Chinese evergreens. The growth patterns change too. Low-light plants typically grow slower, which sounds like a disadvantage until you realize it's actually perfect for indoor life. Fast-growing plants quickly outgrow their pots and take over entire rooms. Slow growers maintain their shape longer, need repotting less frequently, and won't suddenly turn your coffee table into a jungle overnight. And the weird part is how these plants handle stress. Drought, temperature fluctuations, irregular watering schedules, conditions that would send sun plants into shock barely faze shade-adapted species. They've spent millennia dealing with unpredictable conditions on forest floors where resources come and go sporadically. Your forgetful watering schedule? They've seen worse. Some varieties have developed almost supernatural tolerance levels. The cast iron plant earned its name by surviving conditions that would kill practically anything else. Victorian homes with coal heating, gas lighting, and windows that rarely opened couldn't defeat these botanical tanks. If they could handle 19th century indoor air quality, your modern apartment is basically a luxury resort. Modern research keeps revealing new benefits of these shade-loving species. They release oxygen at different rates than sun plants, often providing more consistent air purification throughout 24-hour cycles. Some varieties continue photosynthesis well into evening hours under artificial lighting, essentially working the night shift while you sleep. The best part? Many of these low-light champions are also the most visually striking houseplants available. We're not talking about boring, barely alive green blobs hiding in corners. These are plants with architectural leaves, stunning patterns, elegant trailing vines, and even exotic flowers that bloom in shadows where other plants wouldn't dare attempt flowering. Let's not forget the practical angle here. Low-light plants are perfect for people who live in apartments with limited windows, work long hours, or simply want greenery in spaces where traditional plants would fail miserably. They're expanding the possibilities of where you can bring nature indoors. But which specific varieties deserve space in your dimly lit home? Some combinations of beauty, resilience, and low-light tolerance will surprise you completely. The snake plant sits like a green sword collection in your living room corner, demanding absolutely nothing from you, except maybe a guilty glance when you realize you haven't watered it in 3 weeks. These architectural beauties shoot straight up with thick, waxy leaves that look like they belong in a modern art gallery. What makes them perfect for dark spaces? Their leaves store water like tiny reservoirs, and they actually prefer to be ignored. Too much attention kills them faster than neglect ever could. But here's where it gets interesting. While your snake plant stands at attention, the peace lily takes a completely different approach to winning your heart. This plant throws white flowers at you even when tucked away in the shadiest corner of your bathroom. The blooms look like elegant white flags waving from deep green foliage, and they keep coming back for more. The weird part is that peace lilies actually tell you when they're thirsty by dramatically drooping their leaves like they're auditioning for a soap opera. Then, there's the ZZ plant, which might be the most misunderstood houseplant on the planet. People see those glossy, almost plastic-looking leaves and assume it's fake. Nope, just ridiculously shiny and built to survive conditions that would make other plants pack their bags. You could water this thing twice a month and it'll still look like it just came from the plant spa. The secret lies in its underground rhizomes that store water and nutrients like a plant prepper getting ready for the apocalypse. Let's not forget the Chinese evergreen, which sounds boring until you see one in person. These plants laugh in the face of dark rooms while simultaneously scrubbing your air cleaner than most expensive purifiers. Their leaves come painted with silver, pink, and red patterns that look hand-painted by someone with way too much artistic talent. They're basically living art pieces that happen to remove formaldehyde from your air while you sleep. The cast iron plant earned its name the hard way by surviving everything short of actual house fires. Victorian families used to test new housekeepers by handing them a cast iron plant, figuring if they could kill this thing, they probably shouldn't be trusted with the good china. These plants handle dust, neglect, temperature swings, and lighting conditions that would send other houseplants straight to plant heaven. Their dark green leaves grow slowly but steadily, like they're planning to outlive your mortgage. Well, if trailing plants are more your style, pothos vines will grow so enthusiastically in your bathroom that you'll start wondering if they're plotting to take over. These heart-shaped beauties cascade down from shelves and climb up walls with equal enthusiasm, thriving in the humidity from your shower steam. The golden variety adds splashes of yellow that brighten dark corners better than most table lamps. And the weird part is how spider plants seem to defy basic plant logic by producing babies on long, arching stems while getting minimal light. These plantlets dangle like green spiders from a web, ready to be snipped off and planted elsewhere. One spider plant can theoretically populate your entire apartment building if you let it, making it the ultimate plant for people who like free stuff. Then, there's the heartleaf philodendron, which grows vines covered in perfect heart-shaped leaves that stay green and glossy in conditions that barely qualify as lighting. These plants trail beautifully from hanging baskets or climb moss poles with aerial roots that grab onto surfaces like tiny plant fingers. They grow fast enough that you'll actually see progress week to week, which feels like winning the slow-motion lottery. But why stop at green when you can have a bromeliad shooting neon colors from its center like a tropical firework display? These plants produce colorful bracts in reds, oranges, and yellows that last for months, creating focal points in dark rooms that grab attention from across the house. The mother plant eventually dies after flowering, but not before producing babies around its base to continue the colorful tradition. Finally, there's the Dracaena family, which includes varieties that can stretch up to 8 feet tall indoors while tolerating light conditions that would make most trees give up. These plants grow like slow-motion palm trees, developing thick trunks and crowns of spiky leaves that add serious vertical drama to any room. The Madagascar dragon tree variety looks especially striking with its spiky red-edged leaves that seem to glow even in dim lighting. Makes sense, right? Each of these plants evolved different strategies for thriving in low light, from water storage to efficient leaf design to aggressive growth patterns. But choosing the right plant is only half the battle. Some of these beauties offer unique features that go way beyond basic survival, including leaves that literally move and flowers that appear in the strangest places. The snake plant and peace lily we just covered are amazing, but wait until you meet some of the most bizarre and beautiful foliage plants that couldn't care less about sunlight. These aren't your typical houseplants. They're the rebels of the plant world, with leaves that move, patterns that look hand-painted, and growth habits that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about indoor gardening. English ivy deserves the spotlight first because it's basically nature's interior decorator. Those trailing vines don't just sit there looking pretty, they actively climb whatever you put near them. Bookcases, walls, even that ugly pipe in your basement corner. The leaves come in dozens of patterns, from solid green to cream and green combinations that look like someone dipped them in paint. And here's the kicker. English ivy actually gets more aggressive in low light. It sends out longer vines searching for something to grab onto, which means your plant becomes a living art installation without any effort from you. But then there's Calathea, and this plant is straight up magic. People call it the prayer plant because its leaves literally fold up at night like hands pressed together in prayer. You can watch it happen if you're patient enough. During the day, the leaves spread wide to catch whatever light they can find. As evening approaches, they slowly lift and close. It's like having a pet that goes to sleep on schedule, except this pet has leaves covered in patterns that look like abstract artwork. The colors alone will blow your mind. Deep greens with silver stripes, purple undersides that flash when the leaves move, and some varieties have pink veins running through them like lightning bolts. Calathea doesn't need bright light to maintain these incredible patterns either. In fact, direct sunlight will fade those beautiful markings faster than leaving a photograph on your dashboard. Then there's the parlor palm, which brings a completely different vibe to your space. This isn't some massive palm tree that'll take over your living room. Parlor palms stay compact and manageable, but they give you that tropical resort feeling without the resort prices. The fronds are delicate and feathery, swaying with the slightest air movement from your heating system or fan. What makes parlor palms especially cool is they're completely safe around pets. Most houseplants will make your cat or dog sick if they decide to take a nibble, but parlor palms are non-toxic. Your pets can chew on them all day without any drama, though your plant might not appreciate the attention. They grow slowly in low light, which means you're not constantly repotting or trimming them back. Well, if you want the ultimate tough guy plant, Aspidistra takes the crown. People literally call it the cast iron plant because it survives conditions that would kill almost any other houseplant. Victorian homes were notorious for being dark and filled with coal dust, yet Aspidistra thrived in those parlors when nothing else would grow. The leaves are thick, glossy, and dark green with a leathery texture that feels almost artificial. They grow straight up from the soil in elegant arches, creating a fountain effect that looks sophisticated without trying too hard. Aspidistra handles neglect like a champion. Forget to water it for weeks? No problem. Dust building up on the leaves? It keeps growing anyway. Temperature fluctuations? Cast iron doesn't care, and the weird part is, Aspidistra actually prefers to be ignored. Too much attention, frequent watering, bright light, regular fertilizing can stress it out more than complete neglect. It's the houseplant equivalent of that friend who thrives when left alone but gets cranky when you hover too much. Dumb cane rounds out this collection of unusual foliage plants with leaves that look like someone splattered them with cream paint. The patterns are never identical. Each leaf develops its own unique combination of green and white splotches. Some leaves are mostly green with small white spots, while others are almost entirely cream with just green edges. The name dumb cane comes from the fact that the sap can temporarily affect your ability to speak if you get it in your mouth, but that's only a problem if you're planning to take a bite out of your houseplant. Under normal circumstances, dumb cane is perfectly safe to have around, and those spotted leaves create visual interest in corners where most plants would disappear into the shadows. These aren't just plants that tolerate low light, they're living sculptures that happen to clean your air while they're at it. Each one brings something completely different to your space, from climbing vines to moving leaves to patterns that look too perfect to be real. But foliage is just one side of the low-light plant story. Some of the most stunning surprises come from plants that actually bloom in dark corners, creating bursts of color where you'd least expect them. Who says you need to choose between flowers and dark rooms? Most people assume flowering plants demand bright sunlight to produce those gorgeous blooms. Well, that assumption just cost you some of the most stunning indoor displays you'll ever see. Peace lilies laugh in the face of this sunlight myth. These elegant plants push out pristine white blooms that look like they belong in a fancy hotel lobby, and they do it all while sitting in your dim living room corner. The white flowers aren't technically petals, they're modified leaves called spathes that wrap around the actual tiny flowers. But who cares about botanical technicalities when they're making your dark hallway look like $1,000,000? Peace lilies bloom roughly every 6 months, and each flower lasts about a month. That's a pretty solid return on investment for a plant that basically ignores your lighting situation. Then, there's the anthurium, which might be the most underrated flowering houseplant on the planet. These beauties produce heart-shaped flowers in bold reds, pinks, or even deep purples that seem to glow against dark backgrounds. And the weird part is, those aren't flowers either. They're modified leaves too, surrounding a spike of tiny actual flowers. Nature's pretty sneaky with its design tricks. Anthuriums can bloom year-round in low light, with each flower lasting 2 to 3 months. Your guests will spend ages trying to figure out if they're real or fake because they look almost too perfect. Bromeliads take the whole flowering in darkness thing to another level entirely. These tropical showstoppers develop brilliant centers in orange, red, yellow, or pink that can last for months, sometimes up to 6 months if you're lucky. The colorful part isn't technically the flower, but rather colorful bracts that surround tiny flowers tucked inside. Think of it as nature's version of a neon sign advertising the real flowers hiding underneath. Most bromeliads only flower once in their lifetime, but they produce babies around their base before they fade away. It's like getting a going-away gift that keeps the party running. Let's not forget about Clevia, the aristocrat of low-light flowering plants. This South African native produces clusters of bright orange trumpet-shaped flowers that practically glow in dim conditions. Clivia blooms typically appear in late winter or early spring, lasting about 4 weeks each time. The plant needs a cold period to trigger flowering, around 50 to 60 degrees for about 8 weeks. But here's the kicker. Too much light actually prevents blooming. Bright indirect light or even artificial light works perfectly. Makes sense, right? Sometimes less really is more, but why stop at traditional houseplants when orchids are sitting right there ready to blow your mind? Moth orchids specifically thrive under nothing more than fluorescent lights. These aren't your grandmother's fussy orchids that died if you looked at them wrong. Modern moth orchids bloom for months at a time, sometimes 3 to 4 months straight, in conditions that would make other flowering plants pack their bags and leave. The flowers come in whites, purples, yellows, and spotted combinations that look hand-painted. And the weird part is they actually prefer the consistent, gentle light from indoor fixtures over the harsh, changing conditions outdoors. What makes these flowering champions so different from their sun-loving cousins? Their internal clocks run on a completely different schedule. Most flowering plants need intense light to fuel the energy-expensive process of making blooms. These low-light bloomers evolved in forest understories where dappled light and consistent moisture created perfect conditions for extended flowering periods. They learned to be efficient with their energy, producing fewer but longer-lasting flowers that make every bloom count. Here's something most plant guides won't tell you. Artificial light can actually be better than natural light for some of these flowering beauties. LED grow lights provide consistent light spectrums without the heat spikes and intensity changes that come through windows. Your anthurium doesn't care if its light comes from the sun or a bulb. It just wants steady, gentle illumination for about 12 hours a day. The timing aspect gets really interesting too. Peace lilies often bloom better in fall and winter when natural light levels drop. It's like they're programmed to brighten up your space exactly when you need it most. Orchids follow their own mysterious schedules, sometimes blooming twice a year if conditions stay consistent. And then there's the maintenance factor that nobody talks about. Flowering plants in low light actually need less water and fertilizer than their sun-soaked relatives. The reduced light means slower metabolism, which means less frequent care routines. Your flowers last longer, your plant stays healthier, and you don't have to hover over it like an anxious parent. But even the most gorgeous flowering plants won't thrive if you're making basic care mistakes that kill them slowly from the roots up. Your gorgeous snake plant is sitting in that dim corner, looking absolutely perfect. Then boom, you decide to help it by watering every other day. 3 weeks later, you're staring at yellow, mushy leaves, wondering what went wrong. Here's the thing most people miss. Overwatering kills more low-light plants than actual darkness ever will. When plants get less sunlight, they basically go into energy-saving mode. Think of it like your phone on low battery. Everything slows down to conserve power. Your plant's metabolism drops, which means it processes water much more slowly than those sun-loving plants on your windowsill. That extra water you keep adding, it just sits there in the soil, creating a swamp that rots the roots. The golden rule is simple. Stick your finger 2 inches into the soil. If it's still damp, walk away. Most low-light plants prefer to dry out between waterings, and some, like that nearly indestructible ZZ plant, actually thrive on neglect. Your peace lily will literally tell you when it's thirsty by drooping its leaves dramatically, like a teenager asked to do chores. But here's what nobody talks about. Dust is secretly sabotaging your plants. Those beautiful broad leaves on your Chinese evergreen aren't just for show. They're like tiny solar panels, and when they're covered in dust, it's like putting a dirty film over your windows. The plant can barely breathe through its pores, called stomata, which are already working overtime in low-light conditions. Once a month, grab a damp cloth and gently wipe each leaf. For plants with lots of small leaves, like your pothos, a lukewarm shower works wonders. Just make sure the water isn't too hot. You're giving them a spa day, not boiling them alive. This simple step can literally double how well your plant photosynthesizes with whatever light it gets. Then, there's the rotation trick that makes your plants look professionally maintained. Ever notice how some houseplants grow lopsided, reaching desperately toward the nearest window? That's because plants are basically light-seeking missiles, always growing toward their source. Every week or two, give your pots a quarter turn. Your philodendron will develop into a full, balanced beauty instead of looking like it's trying to escape its corner. Let's not forget about fertilizer. This is where people go completely overboard. Your low-light plants are living in the slow lane, which means they're using nutrients at about half the speed of plants in bright locations. Fertilizing them like they're in a greenhouse is like force-feeding someone who's already full. Once every 2 to 3 months with a diluted liquid fertilizer is plenty. In winter, you can skip it entirely since most plants basically hibernate anyway. Location matters more than you think, even for shade-loving plants. Low light doesn't mean no light. It means indirect gentle light. Place your plants near windows but out of direct sun rays or under bright lamps. The key is avoiding those harsh afternoon sunbeams that can actually scorch leaves that have adapted to dimmer conditions. A bright bathroom with a frosted window? Perfect. That dark closet corner? Not so much. And the weird part is you can actually use artificial light to supplement natural light. LED grow lights aren't just for serious gardeners anymore. They make small, attractive ones that look like regular lamps. Your snake plant doesn't care if photons come from the sun or a bulb, as long as they're the right spectrum. Just keep the light about 12 inches away and run it for 6 to 8 hours daily. Temperature swings will stress your low-light plants faster than you'd expect. These plants often come from stable forest environments where temperatures don't fluctuate wildly. Keep them away from heating vents, air conditioning units, and drafty windows. Room temperature between 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit is their sweet spot. Your cast iron plant might survive temperature abuse, but it won't thrive. Watch for the subtle signs that your plant is actually happy. New growth, even if it's slow, means you're doing something right. Leaves should feel firm and look vibrant in color. If they're getting pale or stretching unusually tall, your plant might need a bit more light. If they're yellowing from the bottom up, You're probably watering too much. The biggest mistake? Moving plants around constantly, especially from dark to bright spots quickly. These plants have literally adapted their cellular structure to low light conditions. Suddenly blasting them with bright light is like dragging someone out of a movie theater into blazing sunshine. It's going to hurt. But what happens when you get everything right and your plants start thriving beyond your wildest expectations? Some of these low-light champions have surprising behaviors that'll completely change how you think about houseplants. Here's something that'll blow your mind. NASA actually sent low-light plants to the International Space Station, and they thrived up there. No kidding. The ZZ plant and snake plant didn't just survive in space, they actually helped astronauts breathe cleaner air while floating around Earth. Makes you wonder why we stress so much about perfect lighting conditions down here, right? But here's where things get really interesting. Your ZZ plant sitting in that dark corner, it can literally go 3 weeks without a single drop of water. 3 weeks! That's longer than most people can remember to check their email consistently. The plant stores water in its thick stems and roots like a camel stores fat in its hump. Perfect for anyone who travels a lot or just happens to be, forgetful about plant care. Then there's the whole fake sunlight situation that nobody talks about. LED grow lights can completely replace natural sunlight for most low-light plants. Sounds weird, but your peace lily doesn't actually know the difference between photons from the sun and photons from a $20 LED bulb. The chlorophyll in its leaves just sees light energy and gets to work making food. Some people have entire plant collections thriving in windowless basements using nothing but artificial lighting. And the weird part is, adding more plants actually makes your indoor air fresher and more humid. It's like having a living air purification system that never needs filter replacements. One NASA study found that 15 to 18 plants in an average home can improve air quality by up to 87%. Your snake plants are literally working overtime to remove formaldehyde and benzene from your living space while you sleep. Let's not forget the biggest mistake people make with these hardy plants, moving them from dark to bright spots too quickly. Plant leaves can actually get sunburned, just like human skin. Take a cast iron plant that's been chilling in a dim hallway for months and suddenly plop it next to a sunny window, and you'll see crispy brown patches within days. The chloroplasts in the leaves haven't built up enough protective compounds to handle intense light. It's like dragging someone who's been living in a cave directly onto a beach in Florida. But why do people always assume more light equals healthier plants? This backwards thinking kills more houseplants than neglect does. Your Chinese evergreen evolved on forest floors where sunlight barely penetrated the canopy. Blasting it with direct sun is like forcing a night owl to work the morning shift at a construction site. Technically possible, but definitely not optimal. Here's another mind bender. Some plants actually prefer the consistency of indoor lighting over outdoor conditions. Wild weather changes, seasonal shifts, and unpredictable storms stress plants way more than steady, predictable indoor environments. Your philodendron doesn't miss the great outdoors because it never evolved to handle dramatic weather swings anyway. The spider plant phenomenon deserves its own mention too. These guys send out baby plants on long stems called stolons, basically creating their own family network right in your living room. One spider plant can produce dozens of offspring in a single year without any help from you. It's like having a plant that runs its own daycare center. Most people don't realize that pothos plants can actually live in water indefinitely. Skip the soil completely. Just stick some cuttings in a jar of water and they'll grow roots and thrive for years. The plant gets everything it needs from dissolved minerals in tap water. Ancient Romans probably would have worshipped this thing as some kind of miracle plant. Bromeliads throw everyone for a loop because they're basically air plants disguised as regular houseplants. In nature, they grow on tree branches and get most of their nutrients from rainwater and debris that collects in their leaf cups. That colorful center spike? It's not actually a flower. It's modified leaves called bracts that turn bright colors to attract pollinators to the tiny real flowers hidden inside. The Dracaena family includes over 40 different species, and most people have no idea they're all related. That compact Janet Craig in your office lobby and the towering corn plant in your friend's apartment are basically cousins. They all share the same superpower of filtering toxins from indoor air while looking completely different from each other. What really throws people off is how these plants actually prefer being slightly pot-bound. Loose, spacious pots make them focus too much energy on root growth instead of producing those gorgeous leaves everyone wants. Keep them slightly cramped, and they'll reward you with better foliage and stronger overall growth. Understanding these quirky facts changes everything about how you approach indoor gardening. But knowing the science behind why these plants behave so differently is just the beginning of creating your own thriving indoor jungle.